Alright guys, today was going to be a recap of the first 3 books of the Outlander series, but by the time that I spent about half an hour collating all of my notes for the first book, I decided it would be much more logical to simply do a video recap of book 1, and we're going to do it all separately. So, here we are. Hi guys, my name is Kirsty and welcome to Upside Down Books. As I said, today we're going to be doing a recap of Outlander Book 1 in the Outlander series by Diana Gabaldon. This is one of the most brilliant series ever written and I'm a big fan, so in celebration of it I whipped out all of my Irish gear because I don't have anything Scottish. It's a cool mug though, no? I like this mug. As I said, I'm basically going to be breaking down what happened in the first book because my good friend over at Cover to Cover Mum, Amanda, has been asking me to do some recaps for her in like an email or some other format like that for a while, and I just sort of haven't sat down to hash out my thoughts, so I'm going to make a video instead. So Amanda, I hope this ticks the box you've been needing ticking. I will say before I start peddling through all this, I have no idea how long this video is going to be, but I don't think it's going to be too short, is that there is a fabulous website out there to help you recap a lot of books. This isn't sponsored or anything, I just really love this website. It's called ReadCaptains. It's a UK website based by a bunch of like bloggers that have come together to create all this content for you, which is like a chapter by chapter summary of a lot of the popular books out there, including quite a number of the Outlander ones. So I did actually jump on there whilst I was writing down my thoughts to fill in a few of the blank patches. It's been, I think, about a year now since I've read Outlander. I have recently just finished reading Voyager, which is the 3rd book, so all of these events are swirling in my mind, and it's actually quite nice to sit down and talk about book 1. So I'm going to just jump right in and tell you all about what happened in this book. This will be full of spoilers. I'm going to be telling you everything that happens, start to finish, so if you've not read the book and you don't want to be spoiled, then don't watch this video. But I think with that, we can pretty much just jump in. I have my little handy dandy notebook here with quite a few pages of notes. And we're gonna get going. So Outlander is an historical fiction book set in 1945 at the beginning. We follow one character called Claire who is a woman. She was a nurse during World War II and she is currently in Scotland with her husband. Her husband's name is Frank and he is a bit of an academic focused on Jacobite stuff. I think he's focused on that. He's an academic about history anyway. I believe they are on a honeymoon, or their second honeymoon for some reason, and they're up in Inverness, but I don't think they're like beyond Inverness, which is really far north in Scotland, for anyone who's not familiar with the geography of Scotland. They're all lovey-dovey, and in the first few scenes we discover that Claire and Frank have not been able to have a child. She's just not been able to conceive, and they're a little bit down and out about it, but they're still like a really young, loving couple, and it's really sweet. We learn a lot about Frank's history, and we hear about one of his particular ancestors, which comes into play later in the book. It's a nice little planted seed at the beginning of the story. In the first few chapters, Claire discovers this little stone circle, and one night she like sneaks out to watch a ritual happening, and quite a few of the people in this village do this weird, very sort of old Celtic stuff. And she thinks, brilliant, I've got to tell Frank about this, I'm going to go back, I'm going to tell him, but instead she accidentally goes back in time. This happens because she walks between 2 of the stones, or she touches the stone. I can't even literally remember how this exactly happens, but basically she is one of the people on Earth that can travel back in time, because we are led to believe through things that happen later on in the series that not everybody can travel back through these stones. But she goes 200 years back in the time and bang smack runs into someone who looks a lot damn like Frank. He is not Frank, but he turns out to be one of her ancestors, and this is Jack Randall, the person that we hate the most in the universe. Damn, I just did a blog post about villains and I didn't put Jack Randall on it. Anyway, she's sort of taken in, she's going to be taken away by him because she's there. No. So she meets Jack Randall, who we hate. She doesn't realise that it's him straight up, and she's really quite confused for a little bit, and it takes her a long time to realise what's happened, but she's saved by the Highlanders. There's a bunch of Highlanders from Jamie's little group, ragtag team, up there fighting off these British dragoons, and they end up saving Claire. So she's taken away with them and she's kept in this little pub overnight. It's probably not even a pub, I think it's just a house. She sets Jamie's dislocated shoulder. There are so many S's in that sentence. Anyway, they sort of get a rapport, the beginnings of a rapport at that point, because they understand that she actually knows a little bit about healing, and I wouldn't say they begin to trust her, but they're interested enough to keep her. So they go on their little horses and gallop across the country to Castle Yaak, which is the clan land for Clan Mackenzie. So on the way here and at Castle Yaak, we find a lot of things out about Randall himself. So we get more of a backstory from Jamie because Jamie has a particularly black history with this man. We learn that Jenny, his really lovely, amazing sister, Randall tried to rape her, which Jamie's very upset about, and eventually we learn even more, but we just sort of start with this backstory. We're just slowly painting the picture in shades of dark grey until it's going to be pitch black for this man. I hate him so much. A lot of things happen in the castle and it's sort of a bit of a fun period where I think Diana Gabaldon was just exploring different medieval stuff and Claire sort of is trying to get herself established while everyone is like, who is this woman? And nobody believes her and she has to create these really good lies. Like, she's so bloody lucky that everyone believed her, but they did, so claps to Claire. So we then have quite a few chapters that she spends in Yaak learning stuff. She gets appointed as the healer. She takes over from the old healer who's died and finds a bunch of really old and questionable remedies, but we also get to explore lots and lots of different healing methods that I've never heard of before. It's probably one of my favourite things about the Outlander series is how detailed Gabaldon is about the healing methods for certain things. So that's really cool, and we also get to know Jamie better. So he's like the stable hand at this point, and you can tell he's just a little bit of an outsider in this clan. And we get to see a lot of horses and we go on quite a few picnics between him and Claire, and she gets his whole backstory and learns more about him being whipped by Randall and about his time when he was in France, about his time as a outlaw and all sorts of things like that. So that was, you know, that happened. Oh, at this point we're also introduced to Gilly Duncan, who is a bit of an on-the-fence character, and we think we like her. She seems pretty cool. She's just the sort of person who knows everything. You're like, yeah, this is a great character. Nice little woman team going on between the two of them. I like it. But then Claire attempts to escape. So there's various things. We're in Castle Yaak for quite a while, and various things happen. There's like a festival that is happening, and not a festival, there's an oath taking. So there has to be, everyone has to swear their oath to the leader of the clan, whose name I can't remember. It's Dougal's brother. Nope, it's gone, but him. And so she thinks that whilst everyone's distracted there, she's going to make a runner from the castle premises, and she does not succeed, and she ends up being picked up by a couple of the other guards. Jamie comes to her rescue there to sort of vouch for her, so the guards leave her alone, but it also means that he does have to attend the oath-taking ceremony, which is a problem for him because of a whole lot of situations that we find out about Lallybroch, which is his own like territory that he's supposed to have, which has just been totally done over because of being an outlaw and all sorts of stuff that's gone on and being banned from the area and blah blah blah. So he hasn't been able to be in charge of that, and by not swearing an oath to the leader of the Mackenzie clan, whose name I can't remember, that's really frustrating. Basically it just causes a few rifts. And Claire starts to get really jealous when anyone looks at Jamie the wrong way. So we're like, oh ha ha, romance is building. Anyway, they then get sent away. So they're basically banished off to go and collect some taxes with Dougal and I think a couple of other people, but... And we get to see a little bit more of the surrounding lands and we learn more about the story, and it is at this point that we get a solid foundation to the whole Jacobite rebellion that's going to happen, that this whole series is founded on. We have some very mixed feelings about Dougal, and in all honesty those mixed feelings are going to continue for the rest of the series because he's a little bit of a grey character and a little bit, you know, self-motivated, if you know what I mean. But we meet a few cool characters. I believe it is this point in the story that we meet Ned Gowan. No, this is the wrong bit, I'm thinking of the wrong bit. But this is definitely the part where they go to all the pubs and they take Jamie's shirt off, much to our delight, but not to his delight, because they then make a spectacle of him and basically try and win people over to the Jacobite cause by being like, look what the English have done to him. That works quite well, but then Jamie's very sad and then Claire has to cheer him up a little bit. It's at this point though that our mixed feelings about Dougal come to light as he strikes a deal with Jack Randall and takes Claire off to Fort William, where he's based, or is based at that time, and they have a little bit of a meeting and a chat and whatnot, and then he beats her up a little bit, but essentially what it comes to is that Randall wants to do an interrogation on Claire, which is probably going to end in her dying because he believes that she is spying from someone else's thing. He learns that he doesn't know who she is and he doesn't like that, and the only way that they can avoid her getting into the hands of Jack Randall again is for her to marry Jamie. What a shame. So she's forced to marry Jamie in a beautiful little church and a beautiful little ceremony that she can't understand because it's all in Gaelic, and then they have some sexy time. I just loved this scene because it's just like she's been resisting and resisting and resisting, and then it's one of the most explicit and amazing sex scenes you're ever gonna read. There's a lot of sex from this point onwards. Every opportunity this couple gets, they have their pants down and their skirts up around their neck. Claire and Jamie are my heroes. I love them. Let's see. Sex. Ah, at this point they also end up in a glen and they're in a forest, and I can't remember what happens, but we meet a guy called Hugh Munro who is important because he comes back into the story later, and he also gives her a dragonfly in amber. Now I don't think this is in the TV series if you've been watching that, because I know that there are other references to that. I know that we get a whole backstory to Claire with like PTSD during the war and all sorts of things like that, but the dragonfly in amber comes from Hugh Munro, and I believe he is handicapped in some way. I believe that he can't speak, and that Jamie has some sort of sign language he uses to communicate with him. Anyway, we have that whole scene that happens, and then we move on to another scene with a Glen where Claire nearly gets raped. Again? Or maybe this is the first time. There's like a couple of English dragoons, and this is the time when she kills a man. She whips out her dirk, and after all the lessons that they've been giving her when they originally took her, when they found her and they took her to Castle Yaak, they all like taught her how to fight and stuff, and where to stab and what have you. And so she kills someone, and Jamie slits the other guy's throat, and that's all fine and dandy, and then Jamie gets angry at her because she nearly died, and he gets really upset, and he's just a little mushy pile of Okay, but at this point she then tries to escape again. I can't remember what happens after this, but she's like left alone for 2 seconds, and so she makes a run for it because she realizes she's close to the circle of stones at Craignadown, and she makes a run for it, but she screws something up, and I have this mental image of remembering that there was like a stream or a river and she just fell through and she went straight down. It might have been because of the skirt she was wearing, but she's basically dying, and we're like, well, here she goes. And guess what happens? Jack and Randall's men find her. They don't know how, I can't remember. I think they see her footprints or they see her splash, and they pull her out. They take her back to Randall, and this time instead of beating her, Randall tries to rape her. But Jamie comes to the rescue, so he has like a pistol that doesn't have anything in it, and it's just like a really ridiculous little rescue. But he comes in, he's at the window, and he's like, hands off my woman, you cowboy. And then he takes Claire, and Jack Randall's left alone, and he's sad and everybody else is happy, and they sneakity-deek back out of the premises. At this point in the story, we start to make our way back to Castle Yaak, and I honestly can't remember a lot of things that happen on that journey on the way back. But I do remember that we then have a very interesting scene with Gilly Duncan, where our happy feelings about her start to turn more like they do towards Dougal, and we're not really sure how we feel about her. She interrogates Claire by drugging her up on opium, I believe. It's something like that, and so Claire's all woozy and she's asking her questions, and we know that she's starting to hedge towards questions of where Claire came from, and Claire is aware in the back of her mind that this cannot happen, or she'll know and then that's not going to happen. But then Gilly Duncan walks in and drops dead, and then Claire tries to resuscitate him, and that doesn't work, so it's like, oh no, and then they're both done for witchcraft. So they get put in a little hidey hole for a while, and Jamie's not around because Jamie's gone on a stag hunt, and the stag hunt, I'm pretty sure it's the one that goes wrong because there's like a wild boar that they find, and I think it mangles someone's guts, and it's all very sad. But then Claire has been put on trial to basically be executed for witchcraft, and everything is going downhill at this point in the book, and nothing is going right. Ned Gowan comes back into the story at this point because he erupts out of the crowd to basically vouch for Claire, and that doesn't really work because other people claim that she summoned the Loch Ness Monster at an earlier point in the book, and it's all really sad, but I do like Ned Gowan. Ned Gowan is great. What a solid lad. That doesn't help us, so that's no good. We do discover at this point, though, that Gilly is pregnant with Dougal's child, which is a bit like, well, that's not supposed to happen. So there's a few questionable things that happen because of that. I think the trial is maybe delayed. I don't know. I can't remember anything. I do believe that Gilly rips her clothes off at this point when they're standing on trial, basically ready to be burned at the stake, and she exposes her vaccination scar, which twigs to Claire that she might not actually be from this time either, which she's had a few suspicions of before this point. But in all of the kerfuffle that Gilly is making, she lets Claire get out and escape, and Jamie swoops her up in his arms, and they go and sit on some grass somewhere and have a good solid chat. At this point, Claire finally tells Jamie where she came from and what on earth has been going on. So she gives him the full disclosure of the time travel and blah blah blah, and he's a little bit like, right, okay. But he's very good. He's a good guy, solid guy, this Jamie, and he takes her back to Craignadown to go through the stones, and she sort of touches it and then goes, nah, the sex is too good, and she stays. So they go to Lally Rock instead to meet his sister Jenny and her husband Ian. Jenny is pregnant with a child, and we go through a very traumatic scene where she nearly dies giving birth to their daughter. I think it's a girl. I can't remember which one it is. Jenny is the best character ever, and we will all eternally be fangirling after her because she is so beautiful and brilliant and fantastic and just She's like the Molly Weasley of the Outlander world. Jamie fixes a few things whilst he's here, including I think a little water wheel thing. We get some soldiers that come through, but eventually he gets captured once again because God forbid the story ended there. They don't know where he's gone, he just doesn't come back. So Claire and Dougal team up together to try and find her. Dougal? No, it's not, it's Myrta. Claire and Myrta go trampsing around the countryside pretending to be a fortune teller and singing to try and gather information. It's a very strange point in the story until Dougal does arrive and gives her some information. He lets her know that 1, Gilly is dead, 2, that she had a message that lets her know that she was from 1967, and we find out that Jamie has gone to Wentworth Prison, which is basically like an all-out, nope, we can't save him. So instead of offering to join her team to try and save Jamie, Dougal offers or sort of threatens to marry Claire instead, and she's like, nah, I don't want that. And then somebody, I think it's Rupert, he sort of walks in at the right time, and then the 3 of them, which I believe, I can't remember which one it is. Yeah, so it's Myrta, Rupert and Claire, they all head off to Wentworth Prison to try and work out how to get Jamie out of there. She does actually manage to infiltrate and get in through a series of very lucky situations here, and she finds him chained up and half dead. Randall has done some terrible things to him. He's set to hang the next day, and Randall is having fun, basically doing what he can without killing him to ruin the hanging before he has to be hanged. And halfway through trying to get him out, because Jamie is just like KO'd at this point, Randall comes back into the room and everything is like, well, there's a lot of stuff that happens in the scene that's reasonably terrifying, traumatic and scarring to the mind, but Randall does a lot of abusive things and has raped Jamie really badly and all sorts of stuff. He crushes his hand. Oh, it's quite extreme, and he does try to stop. Oh, there's a big ogre guy. There's like a weirdly deformed man that's stupid that Claire fights off and actually wins, which is, was it she that wins or Jamie? I don't know. They win it either way. That was weird. The book starts to get a little bit weird at this point. I feel great, but weird. Anyway, basically Jamie strikes a deal with Randall at this point, who is Jamie somehow still being conscious, and basically says that if he lets Claire go, he won't offer him any resistance, to which Randall disgustingly agrees. So Claire escapes, obviously to go and try again some other way, but not really sure how, and in the meantime, Jamie lives through the worst nightmare possible. But when Claire escapes, she walks out a door and into a pack of wolves. This is a weird part of the book. She basically just goes around snapping a bunch of wolves' necks and fighting them off, and then she ends up at this other bloke's house and they hatch a new plan. So you're kind of like, why were there wolves in this story? But this guy called Mokarana knows Jamie's mother, or knew, she's dead now, and he liked her, so he agrees that he will try and stage this rescue mission to save Jamie. So they unleash a herd of cattle into Wentworth Prison, and somehow that actually works. They manage to get Jamie out. They see that Randall is trampled to death. Everyone's very happy, and then Claire tries to heal Jamie, who is really not doing too great at this point. He's on the verge of death, and there's a beautifully horrifying scene where she's setting his hand, which is just... They make a plan to travel to France, so they have this whole scene where Claire kills another young guy and they're riding on horses and someone starts to recognise Jamie, but they eventually make their way on a boat to France. We discover that Jamie has 0 sea legs and cannot tolerate being on a boat. He gets so seasick, but they go to an abbey which has a name that I can't remember, because his uncle is the abbot there, and they basically seek sanctuary. There's a few things that happen along the way with sort of some, I don't know, self-growth of the characters, and Jamie is basically dying. The fever, they can't break it, and there's a really fantastically odd scene where Claire uses opium. Opium is the theme of this book, to make Jamie believe that she's Randall, to basically rouse him from, I guess, a sleep that he just probably wouldn't have woken up from. So they have this epic, messy fight in the monastery, the abbey, sorry, where he believes that she's Randall, and that saves him. Somehow he gets better from then on in. I don't know what was happening at that point in the book. I just nodded and went along with it. At this point, this is a pretty crucial point that happens, that Jamie gets a letter from the King of Scotland, and because they knew that Randall had died because Claire had previously seen Jack Randall's grave, she knew that he was going to die at Culloden, but he didn't die at Culloden because they killed him, so they went, aha, maybe we can join the Jacobite cause because it fails in history, but maybe we can change it to win, knowing what Claire knows. So they start to think about taking on the Jacobite cause, and we also find out in a scene where they're sort of floating in this pool underneath the abbey, which I struggle to imagine, that Claire is pregnant. So we left on quite the high from that book, and we have a whole new platform laid out in front of us for where Dragonfly and Amber is going to go, and it's very exciting. So much happens in this book. It is truly a journey and a half, but that is all I've got for you today. So I hope that if you needed some sort of refreshment on what happened in Outlander, that helped you. Once again, I would say go and check out ReadCaptains. That's probably a much better summary of the book, but I hope you enjoyed all of my digestions of this book today, but let's leave it there. So I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.